There's a moment in life that almost every highly intelligent person experiences, but very few ever talk about. It's quiet, subtle, almost invisible. It happens not in a classroom or during some achievement, but in an ordinary moment like sitting alone in your room or walking home after a long day when you suddenly realize that the very thing people praise you for is also the thing that has quietly separated you from them. You think differently. You observe differently. You understand things faster than you can emotionally process them. And at first, that feels like a gift. It feels like the world gave you this extra lens, this sharpened sense. But over time, you start to notice something strange, something heavy, something no one warned you about. The sharper your mind becomes, the lonelier life feels. Because intelligence isn't just about solving problems, it's about seeing everything. Patterns, motives, contradictions, silent tensions, often before anyone else notices they exist. And when your mind moves faster than the moment you're in, it creates a quiet space between you and the rest of the world. Not because you want distance, but because your brain is always 2 steps ahead, imagining possibilities, predicting outcomes, questioning meanings that most people never pause long enough to consider. It's like living in a room full of conversation while your mind stands just outside the door, listening, analyzing, observing, but never fully stepping inside. If you're someone who's always been told you're bright, gifted, insightful, or mature for your age, you might know exactly what this feels like. And maybe you've never had words for it, because society celebrates intelligence so loudly that it almost feels wrong to admit there's a cost attached to it. But there is a quiet cost, a hidden one, and it shows up in ways you can feel deeply even if you never name it. Maybe it shows up as the pressure to always understand everything immediately, or the expectation that you should always make the right decisions simply because you know better. Or that silent frustration you feel when you explain something a little too quickly and people look at you as if you're speaking another language. Or perhaps it's that strange mix of empathy and distance you feel when you understand someone's emotions clearly but cannot express your own with the same ease. You start to wonder if intelligence is supposed to help you. Why does it sometimes feel like it complicates everything? Growing up, people might have praised you for having the right answers, but no one taught you what to do when the answers start turning into questions. No one teaches you what it feels like when your intelligence begins separating you from the world around you. Because while people appreciate the outcomes of high intelligence, the ideas, the creativity, the clarity, they often misunderstand the inner experience of it. The truth is, highly intelligent people often carry invisible burdens, like the burden of thinking too much. Not because you want to, but because your mind doesn't know how to stop. The world enters you at full volume. Every small detail, every subtle shift in tone, every hidden implication. Your brain collects them instinctively, like a net catching leaves in a river. And before you know it, you're processing things most people walk right past. You notice when someone hesitates before speaking. You sense when someone is uncomfortable even if they smile. You pick up patterns in people's behavior without trying. And sometimes you wish you didn't, because once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you understand, you can't go back to innocence. Intelligence doesn't just sharpen your mind, it sharpens your awareness, even in moments where softness would have been easier. And then there's the burden of being misunderstood. You explain something, and people say, you're overthinking. You share a thought, and people say, it's too complicated. You try to simplify, and it still sounds like you're speaking from a place that can't quite reach. After a while, you begin to shrink parts of yourself just to blend in. Not because you want to dim your mind, but because having to constantly slow down your thoughts to match the world around you becomes exhausting. You end up learning how to translate yourself, and that translation becomes a skill you never intended to master. But here's something many never realize. The higher your intelligence, the more likely you are to experience something called cognitive isolation. It's not emotional isolation, not social isolation. It's the feeling of living from the inside out, watching the world move at a rhythm that doesn't match your inner one. It's the quiet sense that your mind is always elsewhere, thinking in spirals instead of lines, questioning even the things most people consider simple, feeling deeply even when you stay silent. It's the sense of always being slightly out of phase with the world around you. Most highly intelligent people don't struggle with understanding. They struggle with belonging. They struggle with letting go of the instinct to analyze everything they feel. They struggle with the pressure of always having to be the capable one. And they struggle with the fear that if they show confusion or uncertainty, they'll disappoint the expectations others have built around them. And they struggle with the silent truth that intelligence doesn't make life easier. It simply makes life clearer. And clarity is often the thing that hurts the most. Because once you see the world with too much clarity, its contradictions, its flaws, its inconsistencies, it becomes harder to live on the surface. You're always sinking deeper, thinking deeper, feeling deeper. You become the person people come to for advice, but rarely the person people truly understand. And sometimes the smartest thing about you becomes the thing that keeps you awake at night.
But here's something else. Intelligence also comes with emotional challenges that people rarely talk about, like the difficulty of turning your mind off, the way your thoughts can spiral not because something is wrong, but because your mind is always looking for meaning, or the way you often replay conversations in your head, analyzing what you said, what they meant, what could have been understood differently. Sometimes you're not anxious at all. You're just thinking at a depth others confuse with worry. There's also the hidden pressure of potential. When people tell you you're capable, talented, gifted, those words don't just land softly. They become expectations. Doors you're supposed to walk through, standards you're supposed to maintain. And when you fall short, even slightly, you feel the weight of that gap more intensely than anyone else. Because highly intelligent people don't fear failure the way others do. They fear not living up to who they believe they could become. And this leads to a kind of self-imposed perfection, a quiet internal standard that makes even small mistakes feel amplified. When you understand things quickly, people assume you'll understand everything quickly. When you're good at something, people assume you'll be good at everything. And suddenly, intelligence becomes less of a trait and more of an obligation. But among all these hidden costs, perhaps the most painful one is the way intelligence shapes your emotional world, not by making you cold or detached. Quite the opposite. Many highly intelligent people feel emotions intensely. They just express them differently. They intellectualize things that hurt. They rationalize things that scare them. They analyze feelings that would have been easier to simply feel. And it's not because they lack emotion. It's because they feel too much to show it easily. Intelligence gives you the ability to understand your emotions, but not always the ability to sit comfortably inside them. You know why you feel something long before you know how to cope with it. You can explain your sadness before you can soften it. You can describe your loneliness before you can soothe it. And so you live inside a mind that feels everything clearly, yet processes it all alone. It creates a strange paradox. The smarter you are, the harder it becomes to ask for help, because you've been the problem solver your whole life, the responsible one, the one who figures things out. And even when you need support, there's a part of you that whispers, you should be able to handle this on your own. But intelligence doesn't remove human needs. It doesn't erase longing. It doesn't make you immune to confusion, heartbreak, doubt, or fear. It simply gives you more words to describe them. And sometimes, more words make the feelings more complex, not less. There's also this quiet ache that highly intelligent people rarely admit. The longing for someone who understands you without you having to simplify yourself. Someone who can follow your thoughts without slowing down. Someone who listens not just to your words, but to the meaning beneath them. Someone who feels like a home for your mind, not just your heart. You don't need someone equally intelligent. You just need someone who is willing to meet your depth instead of fearing it. But for many, that kind of connection feels rare. And when something is rare, you start to question whether it's even possible. Yet, even with all of this, despite the loneliness, the pressure, the emotional complexity, there is something profoundly human about the experience of high intelligence. Because beneath every quick thought, every idea, every observation, every quiet moment of overthinking, there's a person trying their best to navigate a world that was not designed for depth. You're not too much. Your mind isn't a burden. Your thoughts aren't an inconvenience. They are simply a reflection of a brain that feels alive in a way that can sometimes overwhelm you. A brain that sees the world with sharpness and softness at the same time. A brain that has spent years trying to balance understanding with belonging. And even if no one has ever said this directly, the truth is there is nothing wrong with you. What you're experiencing is the reality of a complex mind living in a simple world. And there is more to this story, much more. Because the hidden cost of high intelligence doesn't just come from how others see you. It also comes from how you see yourself. There comes a point in every highly intelligent person's life when they realize their greatest misunderstanding did not come from the world around them, but from within themselves. Because for years, you may have assumed that intelligence should make everything clearer, simpler, easier. But the truth is that the more you understand, the more aware you become of how much there is still left to understand. Intelligence doesn't shrink the world, it expands it. And sometimes that expansion feels like standing in front of a vast landscape, unable to decide where to step next. You begin to see possibilities everywhere. Every path has 10 more branching from it. Every decision opens a dozen new questions. Every new idea leads to deeper layers you didn't expect to uncover. And while this curiosity is part of what makes your mind extraordinary, it can also become a quiet source of overwhelm. You start to feel not the pressure of choosing wrong, but the pressure of choosing at all. Because when you can imagine so many potential futures, the present suddenly feels too narrow to contain them all. This creates a strange form of paralysis that many highly intelligent people experience. Not because they lack direction, but because they understand too well.
You see the cost of every choice. You feel the weight of every possibility. And sometimes you end up standing still simply because your mind is overcrowded with options. And then there's the quiet burden of being the one who gets it. Throughout your life, you may have been the person who figured things out faster than your peers. Teachers praised you for it. Friends relied on you. Family expected it. And over time, that pattern becomes internalized. You start believing that your worth is tied to your answers, not your questions. To your strength, not your uncertainty. To your clarity, not your confusion. So when you eventually face moments where you don't know what to do, moments every human being has, your mind turns inward, not with compassion, but with criticism. You think, I should be able to figure this out, even when the problem you're facing isn't intellectual at all, but emotional. Even when the solution isn't found in logic, but in allowing yourself to be human. Highly intelligent people often struggle the most when life requires them to be emotional instead of analytical. When clarity comes not from thought, but from vulnerability. When the answer is not an insight, but a connection. And because you've built an identity around being capable, you sometimes deny yourself the softness of being supported. Yet one of the most important truths you can ever learn is this: intelligence does not replace humanity. It does not remove the need for comfort, patience, reassurance, or companionship. It does not give you immunity from the complexity of the heart. In fact, the heart may be the one place where intelligence finally meets its match, because feelings don't operate on logic. They don't respond to analysis. They don't unfold neatly like the steps of a problem you can solve. They twist, they shift, they contradict themselves. And for someone with a deeply analytical mind, that unpredictability can be uncomfortable. Not because you don't feel emotions, but because you feel them intensely and try to understand them too quickly. Sometimes the most intelligent people struggle with relationships not because they don't care, but because they care so deeply that they overthink every detail. They question their own value. They replay moments in their mind, looking for the meaning behind every word, every pause, every expression. They analyze what they feel instead of trusting it. And this can create a distance not because they lack emotion, but because they're afraid of overwhelming others with the intensity of what they feel. There's also the silent challenge of connecting with others when your mind naturally gravitates toward depth. You want conversations that explore ideas, emotions, memories, meaning. You want dialogues that feel alive, layered, purposeful. But the world often operates on the surface, small talk, simplicity, routine. And while there's beauty in simplicity, it can sometimes feel like you're a book placed in a world of short sentences. You don't want to be complicated. You don't want to be too much. You just want to be understood without needing to hide your inner world. But because such moments are rare, you might learn to keep pieces of yourself tucked away, revealing them only in the presence of those who feel safe enough to understand them. And perhaps the deepest cost of high intelligence is the expectation you place on yourself. Not the one others place on you, but the one you carry quietly inside. The expectation to always be composed, to always have a plan, to always maintain perspective, to always know how to navigate your life with precision. But intelligence doesn't protect you from human confusion. It doesn't protect you from heartbreak, disappointment, mistakes, or fear. It only gives you more language to describe them. And sometimes that language makes the experience sharper, not softer. There are moments when your intelligence becomes a double-edged sword. You know too much about the risks. You understand too deeply what can go wrong. You foresee endings before beginnings have a chance to blossom. You comfort others with wisdom you rarely apply to yourself, because your mind critiques your own emotions more harshly than anyone else ever would. And still, beneath all this complexity, there is something profoundly beautiful about having a mind that refuses to settle for the surface. Because while intelligence comes at a cost, it also comes with a quiet, rare depth that shapes the way you experience life. You notice beauty in things others overlook, the small details in conversations, the unspoken truths that sit beneath someone's smile, the way a moment can change a person's entire day. You see meaning in patterns, stories in glances, lessons in mistakes. You feel the world not as a series of events, but as a landscape of connections. You carry empathy not in waves, but in entire oceans. And this depth, while sometimes overwhelming, also gives you access to a kind of insight that can change not only your life, but the lives of those around you.
And yet many of them carry a silent fear, the fear that their mind sets them apart too much, the fear that they are destined to walk through life slightly alone, the fear that depth is a distance instead of a bridge. But this fear is rarely accurate. The world needs people who think like you, people who question, who imagine, who understand the complexities others overlook. The world needs minds that carry both sensitivity and clarity, both logic and emotion, both awareness and compassion. The real challenge is not to become less intelligent, it is to become more gentle with yourself, to allow your intelligence to be a tool for understanding, not a weapon for self-criticism, to let your depth be a doorway to connection, not a reason to withdraw. Because here's the truth, intelligence is not meant to isolate. It's meant to illuminate. It's meant to help you see the world more clearly, so you can experience it more fully. It's meant to help you understand yourself so you can move through life with more purpose. It's meant to help you navigate your emotions, not avoid them. But there is one more hidden cost that rarely gets spoken about. The cost of being highly aware in a world that often prefers simplicity. When your mind naturally sees patterns and implications, you become sensitive to things others dismiss. You notice inconsistencies, emotional shifts, unspoken tensions. And while this awareness is a strength, it can also be draining when the world expects you to accept things at face value. There will be times when your understanding makes you feel older than your age. Times when you feel like you've lived multiple emotional lifetimes in a single day. Times when your empathy feels too big for your own heart. Times when your thoughts feel too loud for the moment you're in. But none of this means you're difficult or detached. It means your mind is awake. It means your heart is involved. It means you are not drifting through life half-aware. You are fully present, even in the moments that challenge you. And perhaps the most healing truth you can embrace is that intelligence does not require perfection. It does not require certainty. It does not require constant control. Sometimes the strongest thing a brilliant mind can do is let go. Let go of the pressure. Let go of the expectations. Let go of the belief that you must always be ahead. Because the real gift of intelligence is not in thinking faster than others. It's in seeing deeper than the moment. It's in recognizing meaning where others see routine. It's in understanding emotions with a clarity that can help you grow, not just analyze. You don't have to carry the world alone simply because you can understand it more clearly. You don't have to solve every problem simply because you see it before others do. You don't have to hide your depth simply because it's rare. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to feel uncertain. You're allowed to be human in the places where your intelligence has made you feel responsible. In moments of doubt, remember this. The mind you have is not a burden. It is a lantern. It lights up things others may walk past. It shows you possibilities others don't consider. It reveals truths that help you navigate your path with greater awareness. And while that light sometimes makes the world feel heavier, it also allows you to see beauty with a level of detail that few people ever experience. The hidden cost of high intelligence is real, but so is the hidden beauty. The beauty of growing not just in knowledge, but in wisdom. You are not alone in these experiences, and you are not meant to walk through life feeling separated from others. The world is full of people who think deeply, who feel intensely, who question their place, who seek meaning. You may not always see them, but they exist. And when you meet them, whether in friendships, relationships, or even small passing moments, you will realize that intelligence doesn't isolate forever. It attracts the kind of minds that resonate with yours, even quietly. And when that happens, something extraordinary unfolds. You begin to see that your intelligence was never the thing that separated you. It was the thing leading you toward the people who would finally feel like home. Because the ultimate truth is this: the cost of high intelligence is real, but the reward is equally real. And that reward is the ability to live a life filled with depth, meaning, curiosity, connection, and a profound awareness of what it means to be human. Your mind is not a weight. It is a gift, a rare one, a remarkable one. One that comes with complexity, but also with immense beauty. And as you move forward, the greatest transformation will come not from trying to change your mind, but from learning to trust it, to embrace the way it thinks, to honor the way it feels, to allow it to be both analytical and emotional, both logical and sensitive, both structured and free. Because in the end, intelligence is not about being ahead of others. It's about being aligned with yourself. And once you understand that, the hidden cost begins to feel less like a burden and more like a path toward a deeper life, a path toward a truer self, a path toward a world where your mind is not something you carry alone, but something you share gently, authentically, courageously, with the people who appreciate it most.